Hi guys, welcome to FaithWorks Woodworking. My name is Shawn, and today we're going to be making American flags made out of wood. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to grab an 8-foot long 2x4, and as you can see I'm cutting it down to 37-inch lengths. So you're going to get two 37-inch length boards out of one 2x4. So what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a pile of 13 37-inch boards, and out of the 13 boards you will be able to make two American flags after you cut them down the middle, which we'll get to that in a few minutes. Alright, so here the next step we're going to do is we're going to take one of our 37-inch boards and we're going to make a jig for the flags. So what you're going to do is you're just going to start right at the edge and just do a zigzag line all the way across the board until you get to the end. And then you're going to end up with what you see here on the board is like a wave pattern. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to cut out that pattern just like you did see here in the video. And then you're going to put 13 marks on it. Each mark is going to be 1-inch increment all the way from 1 to 13. This allows you to get the different waves in each board. Next thing I do is I'll take the board and I'll put a number 1 on either side, so that way I get two pieces out of one board. Now remember, one board makes two flags. So what we do here is the first thing is we take the jig here that we made, and you're going to lay it on top of the 2x4 as you can see in the video. Now since it's the first board, we're going to start at 1. Then we're going to take our pencil, we're going to trace the line all the way down to the very end. And that's board number 1, so you're going to put that off to the side. Now you're going to grab your second board. Now you're going to mark that with a number 2 on both sides, because remember you get two flags out of each board. Then you're going to take your jig here in a second. Take the jig and you're going to put it on the number 2 mark at the very end of the board. Now you're going to trace that out. Now, obviously because you moved the board, you're going to have a small space at the end, which you can see here in the video. There's a small space. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your jig and you're going to line up the wave at the beginning of the board, and you're just going to carve it out, and that gives you the end of that board. And you're just going to keep repeating this process. So then you grab your third board, mark that with a number 3, lay it down, then grab your jig, put your jig at number 3, trace that out. Now you're obviously going to have a gap at the end, and what you're going to do here is the same thing you did for 2. You're going to match up the front of that to the end, and then you trace that out, and that gives you that curve. And you're just going to keep repeating this process until you're done all your boards. So next one we're going to do here is 4. So put your jig on 4, trace that out, and then once you get to the very end, just do what you did for the previous ones. Just slide your jig down and make sure you have it lined up, and then just trace that out, and that gives you a complete wave. So you're just going to keep repeating this process over and over again until you get through all 13 boards. It takes some getting used to. You don't have to be 100% perfect about lining them up. because you can take care of any imperfections that you come across here in the final carving process. All right, guys. So the next step here, we're going to take the board and we're going to put it on an angle. If you have a bandsaw, please, by all means, use your bandsaw to cut it. But I don't own one. So this is how I will put the board on my makeshift bench that I made. I made the bench this way so that way I could screw pieces into it as needed. You know, if a board gets warped, I can always just replace it. So right now, see, I'll just grabbing two blocks and I'm going to butt them up against a 2x4 there. And then what I'll do is I'll screw them into the bench and it will help me hold the 2x4 in place just so it doesn't move when I'm using the jigsaw. And then I can slide it in and out as I need. And then for extra support, I'll grab a clamp and I'll clamp it to the table. That just helps hold it in place even more. You know, you don't want it moving all over the place. And so you can take your jig now and just put that off to the side. Now, don't get rid of it because you will need it for future projects. So next step here is to get everything lined up the way you want. You can use a jigsaw, you can use a bandsaw. I'll use jigsaw. As you can see, I'm showing you without cutting that I will just follow the line as needed. Now remember, each board will give you two pieces and you're going to get two flags out of each 2x4 that you cut. So make sure you put one off to the left and put one off to the right. And you're going to do that with each board as you go through the process. So on your one side, you'll have A, on the other side, you'll have 1, depending on how you label them. So make sure you keep them numbered, make sure you keep them in order, because it will show you in the end what things will look like. So here I have one that's already pre-done. I just skipped the cutting out process. You guys didn't need to see that, but this is a pre-cut and somewhat assembled flag before the carving process. As you can see, by putting them in order, you get that overlapping wave look that goes either off to the right or to the left, depending on how you position it. Now here with these blocks, what I'm doing is I'm showing you how I screw the boards together. So you'll take one block, and you'll start with 13, and you'll put 12 on top. Make sure you have two drills here, one that you can countersink a hole and one for putting the screw in. So you're going to drill a hole, and then obviously you're going to grab a 2.5-inch screw or a 2-inch screw, depending on what size you want to use. And you're not going to want to put it all the way in. You don't want to put it too tight because eventually you're going to have to take these screws out. So I normally put 3 screws. I like to put them in the biggest part of the wood, that way, because when I'm carving, I don't want it in the small section so it doesn't get ground up by the grinder. So, and when you go on to the next board, so we're right here, we're just doing 12. So the next thing I'll do, I will grab a pencil here, and so what I'm doing here is I'm marking the board just to give you an indication of what I'm doing. So you can see 12, 13, 11. So before you put the next board on, you're going to want to take a pencil and you're going to want to mark on the side of the flag where you put your previous screws. And obviously the reason you're doing this is that way when you put on the next piece, you know where your screws are and you're not putting them in the exact same place. You can see I put the lines there. So then grab your next board and line it up. And, just grab your countersink again, drill a hole, and you're going to put a screw in that one. I like to do them individually. I don't like to do all 3 holes at the same time. I like to do one hole and then work my way down the board. Just helps me line the pieces. That way they're not uneven. But you can see there, that's where the 2 screw marks are. That way I know exactly where I put them. And you're just going to repeat this process all the way to the end. And hopefully you get it into the meaty section. Sometimes you will get it into the smaller sections, but it's okay. I mean, it adds character. But you can see I'm pointing out where all my screw lines are, so I know where all the screws are that are holding this flag together. So this is just getting it ready for carving. Eventually we will take, once it's carved, we will take all the screws back out. And the reason we take them back out is for the painting process. It makes it easier to paint the boards individually than it does to paint them while they're still attached. So right now I'm just propping up the flag and putting more support around it for when I have to start my carving. All right, guys. So the next step here is we're going to grab our sander. Make sure you have your eye protection on and a mask. I got these grinders off of Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below. They're fairly inexpensive, but I find they work the best. So I keep the heavier one on my powered cord, and the black one that you see in my hands there is more for fine-tuning areas that are hard to reach, or if I just want to smooth something down. So you definitely want to make sure you wear a face mask because this is going to get really dusty. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. I have a huge fan blowing on me and a garage door open to help push the dust out, but I still wear a mask and my eye protection. So when you get ready to carve, you're going to make sure that you have a really strong grip on your carver. And you just carve away all the high pieces. You can see here what I'm doing is any piece that's sticking up real high, I'm carving it down to make it all uniform and match. And this is where you define the waves in the flag. You just keep grinding until you're happy with what the flag looks like. You'll notice that as you carve, you'll see spots that the carver really can't get into. It's okay to take a little bit more from boards. You're carving it the way you want it. No 2 flags are alike. And what I do is I just run it back and forth until I get the desired smoothness or height or uniformity. You keep just keep grinding. You can see here I'm taking a little bit out of the center there. Anywhere that's a high spot, you just keep grinding it. You'll see eventually here. I will show you a closer view of what it looks like. As you can see, you definitely want to wear a face mask because it definitely spits some dust. There are more aggressive carving bits out there. I've tried them in the past, but wasn't too fond of them because it took too much out of the flag. This one has somewhat smaller teeth on it, and I find this one to be the easiest one to use. So when you turn off your tool, make sure it's done before you do anything. So, all right. So here, the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to feel the wood to see if it's smooth and where we have high spots. Um, you'll see in some areas you'll still have to do some carving. Um, Obviously, you can see there on the edge and right there where my hand is, there's still high spots. So just take your time. You don't want to rush the carving process. You'll have big pieces sticking up. Just keep feeling and feeling until you get that nice smooth feel of the wood, and just keep carving in and out. You don't want to go too deep in the smaller sections because you don't want to grind that out. So you just, like I said, just keep feeling around for high spots, and then when you find high spots, just take your grinder and start grinding them down. Um, like I said, you're just going to keep stopping every few minutes, and you're going to just keep running your hand across the board until you are satisfied with the smoothness. Now you'll see here I'm switching to, I call it my redefining bit. It just doesn't take as much away. I like to use this one on the edges because it's somewhat slower and it won't eat too much of the wood, and it allows me to fine tune things. So like if you have high spots where the other one has made some big indents, just take this one, slowly go back and forth, make sure you got a good grip on it. So, and just always run your hand across the board just to make sure that you have a feel for what areas still need to be done. Right there where I'm pointing is the area I like to use this tool for, because it's not as aggressive on the edge. And you can move the board around to make sure you can get better position. And I use this just to grind down the edges on sections like this. It just helps me have more control over what I'm taking out material wise. It's a lot of grinding. Just keep grinding and grinding. You just take a little bit here and there. You can see that's what I'm doing right now, just taking little chunks until I get it all smoothed out and get the wave going. Let the wood tell you what to do. All the wood is different. You're going to run into knots. You're going to run into bumps and stuff. You're going to take chunks out. If you take a chunk out, just take a grinder and you grind it down until it's smooth. If you have a knot that pops out, do the same thing. One of the other things I like to do is keep a brush handy like this, and I will brush off all the sawdust so I can see the areas that I've already done. That back area there, I'm not worrying about that right now because I'm not working on that area. So you can see here when I screwed the boards together, I accidentally misaligned them. Now that's an easy fix. Just take the belt sander, and just grind it all the way down, or take a handsaw and just saw them off. That's, like I said, that's an easy fix. That was me not paying attention when I lined up my boards when I was screwing them together. It happens. I like to show my imperfections, and that way, if people run into these issues, they can see what needs to be done. All right, so here we're going to continue on grinding the high spots. Just keep chipping away at it. Find the spots that are high, and just keep rounding it down. Eventually, you're going to get to a position where you're happy with it. Just when you do the edges, make sure you do the edges somewhat slow and careful, because you can take the chunks out of the edge and you don't want to do that. Here I'm just grinding down high spots Just trying to make sure it all looks the same and feels the same. So just, keep keep grinding. You'll see that I like to do this back and forth method. I find that to be the easiest way to get the boards to be smooth and get all the high spots down. And just you don't have to do it the way I'm doing it. You can do it any way you feel it's easier for you. I just find this to be the easiest and fastest way for me. Just just keep grinding and grinding until you get to that final result. Even when you get to the final result, you're still going to find areas that may not be up to your par, and then you can just take the grinder again and just go over that section a little more until you're happy with it. Um, you just work your way across the flag. Now you'll see like back spots. I haven't touched them yet, and there's a reason for me not doing that yet, which I will show you here shortly. Just work your way back and forth. I like to do the rocking mechanism. I like to rock it back and forth because, like I said, it helps me smooth out the flag and get the shape that I'm going for. And like I said, every flag is different. All wood is different. So let the wood, pretty much tell you which direction it wants to go. Uh, Sometimes things go 100% perfectly, and sometimes you have to take a little bit more than what you want. But make sure you're not taking way too much to where it. You don't want to take too much off. You want to just keep grinding. What I was saying there is you don't want to go too deep and take too much off, um, especially in the low spots. You know, you don't want to burn through the wood. You want to try and make everything nice and smooth and get all the high parts. So just grind away until you finally are happy with what you got. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm clamping it down so it'll stop it from moving while I'm trying to grind this one edge here. Um, I kept running into the issue that the flag was moving. So that's a good practice to get into, is to make sure everything's properly secured, especially when you're using the grinder, because it does have a tendency to kick, and you don't want the flag to kick into you, or you don't want the grinder to kick into you. That's why I wear an apron. Um, I have had it kick back on me. Thank God I was using my battery operated one, and it stopped before it did too much damage. So, safety first. Make sure you wear the proper eye protection, proper apron, mask, hearing protection. So you see, I'm coming to the end here. So I got the one side off completely, grinded down. Now I'm just finalizing up the far right corner. You'll get better and better at it as you go on. The more flags you make, the faster you'll get. Um, and you just grind away until you're happy with the final result. It's your work. You make it look the way you want it to look. It doesn't have to look exactly like what I'm doing. It doesn't have to look exactly like what other people are doing. Make the flag unique to yourself. If you want to have the waves more prominent, by all means, grind them to make them more prominent and stick out more. I just find following the jig that I made works best for me. So I always stop to feel the wood to make sure that I don't have any high spots on the side that I'm working on. So you'll see here, I'm gonna just blow all the dust off. I always blow the dust off, or use a brush or something like that. So I always run my hand across it. I do it lightly, that way I don't get any splinters. Just feeling to see if there's any spots that I missed, or see if there's some areas that I want to improve on. I mean, like I said, it's totally up to you. You'll see there's a high spot. You know, there's a couple high spots still that I have to take care of. So what I'm going to do here is I like to flip the flag sometimes, turn it around so I can get a better view of the other side, so I can see what I missed, because you can only see so much from this side. And like I said, you're going to want to look at it from all angles. Sometimes I look at it from the long way just to look down at the flag. Um, yeah, see there, I'm talking about how I carved it, and it was kind of shallow, but I'll make it work. And now I'm feeling for more bumps and high spots, and that is what I do that a lot. I always stop every once in a while and run my hand across it just to see where I'm at with the quality of the board, to see if the flag is what I like. So I think now what I'm going to do here is flip the flag around so I can see the other side. I know I said that already once, but oh, I guess there was a high spot that I missed that I needed to take care of. You can see that I'm just finalizing up some high spots here. It takes time. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it, and the faster you'll get at it, and you'll be able to notice where spots need improvement, or if you're not liking what you see, you can grind down a little more. So I also like to use this too. You can see I'm going back and forth. Sometimes I'll use that to define my shape, and you do get like grooves from using the grinder. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of smoothing them grooves down, so I start to get that wave look, so it helps in the long run when I go to sand. So it's not as much sanding. I mean, believe me, there will be a lot of sanding that needs to take part in to get the flag to its final stage. So I'll rock back and forth and just smooth out the high spots there. So once you get it all ground down to the proper thickness of where you want it, now it's time to start with the sanding process. So I like to start out with a 40 grit paper. I'll do the entire flag with 40 grit. I'll go over that maybe two, possibly three times. I find 40 helps me get the groove marks out the sand, from the carving bit. Like I said, there's a fair bit of sanding that goes involved into this part. You'll be sanding for quite some time. I'll go from 40 to 60 to 80 to 120. Um, I don't go much higher than 120. I don't really feel that you need to go any higher than that, because you're going to paint, you're going to burn the boards, and then you're going to paint them, and then you're going to spray them with a finish. So I think 120 is a good number to stop at. But I like to use the 40, 60, and 80 to really get a lot of the imperfections out and smooth the boards down and give the flag its look. This is where the flag really starts to come into play, where you'll see what the final result looks like. I sand the entire flag. I'll sand all four sides. One of the other things I do too is I round off all the edges. I don't leave any pointy marks on the flag. I think it adds character, but it's also a safety reason. I don't want someone to get hurt from one of my flags. I'd rather them just enjoy the beauty of it. So I will sand every inch of the flag except for the back. I don't do anything to the back because the back will be up against the wall. I don't even burn the backs, which we'll see later when I burn the flag. But, sanding, sanding, sanding. Lots of sanding. You'll be sanding for about maybe an hour or two. So just put on some good tunes and start sanding. Sanding is going to be one of the biggest things you do besides grinding. I mean, if you like sanding, you'll have a good time. If you don't like sanding, I'm sorry, but that's going to be one of the things you do for the longest period of the time in making this flag. Alright, once you got it sanded to where you're happy with it, mine turned out nice and smooth. I went up to 220 grit, worked my way from 40, 60, 80, and so on and so on. So I got it nice and smooth, got the edges all rounded up, got the numbers sanded off. So the next thing I do, now this is totally preference, this is up to you. I find it a lot easier to do it this way. You could take it apart and burn them piece by piece by piece, but I like to do it this way, and then this gives me a better feel for the pattern I'm going for. When it gets down bottom here, I'll move it so it doesn't, burn this. So what you do, regular old propane, turn it on. Remember, you're messing with fire. Keep fire extinguisher nearby. And just I work back and forth on the hump part first. I like to get them nice and dark. I like to make these dark because I like to make them stand out. Going back and forth until you're happy with how dark it is. Make them as thick as you want. You don't want to keep it on there too long because you don't want to burn it completely. And then just work your way over to the next hump. Going back and forth. Make sure when you get to a knot, sometimes they don't burn right away, so you might have to keep the heat on the knot a little bit longer, but not too long. You don't want to burn the wood. Like, you just kind of want to make it somewhat discolored. You want to make the grain pop. Like I said, you could take these apart and do them individually, but I like to do it with the flag together because it gives me a better idea of what it looks like. And we'll move over to the next one. You know, if it's not dark enough for you, you could always just let it stay on there a little longer to get the desired darkness or color contrast that you're looking for. I don't know, this is how I do it. I work my way down the wave section first to get the dark color, and then I'll work my way back in and do the light. I know it's kind of weird that I'm making the humps, the high parts dark, but when I paint them, it really makes them stand out more. Because if technically the light would be darker in here, but like I said, I don't want to go all the way down because of that. And then find the next part. So when you get it as dark as you want, you just come back in and start working in the light areas. Make that as light or as dark as you want. You know, when you burn them, that's however you want to do it. You know, that's your signature. I just think my flags look better with the hump part darker and the inside's lighter. Just go back and forth. If it's too light for you, just find a little bit more heat to it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. This is totally up to you. How you want the burn look to look. Now I use pine, so sometimes the sap sticks out and it'll burn. You just have to be careful. Like I said, you know, be careful because we are working with fire, you know, and wood, you know. Turn it around. And go to the bottom half. that's done, I'll take my board, pull it out far enough so it's not hitting nothing, and I'll do the back sides. Around. And just do that until everything is burnt. Now, I don't do anything to the back. I don't find you need to do anything to the back because it's going to be up against the wall. So why waste your time burning it? The only thing I will do is spray it just to make sure it's protected. But other than that, I don't do anything on the back. Just leave it as is. So now, what we're going to do here is this. After we have it burnt, we will wipe it off. Okay, so you will look, so like this is right here, got a big wave in it. Now I won't use that spot. I'll flip it around to this side. And what I'll do is I'll grab my stencil that I got off Amazon. So when you go to put your stencil on, you always make sure your stars are pointing up. So I take this, put it over here, and I just make sure that I go down 7 boards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm at 7. I come over here, I grab my pencil, and I just draw a line right down those 7 boards where the union's going to be. And I move it off to the side. So what that did was, I drew a line so I know that this is the last part of the union, so I know that I only go blue to here, and the blue will go from here in. So that's why I do that. Now, after I have that drawn on, now remember I told you you didn't want to tighten down on your screws, and this is why, because you're going to take it completely apart. grab myself a little thread bin and put all my screws in there. And just take it and just move it up to the top. And you're going to remove all the screws. Save them. Make sure you save them because you're going to need them to put that together. I'm just going to keep doing that until all the screws are removed. Now, let me show you something. You will run into this problem. You can see when I took the screw out, I broke the wood. So what I just do, tap it back in. Because when we put the thing back together, when we put the flag back together, we're gonna glue it all in. So it'll all be glued together. You just move that up there. So I'll keep removing those and then we'll go from there. Alright. So now that I have all my pieces taken apart, I will take the bottom half of the flag and just move it out of the way. Because what we're going to focus on right now is the union. Make sure your area is clean because now you're going to be messing with the paint. And I find this to be the best way for me. You do whatever is easier for you. I have in the past used the straight edge and hammered it in, but I didn't like the way it looked. I didn't like the indentation that it left. I find the Shrog tape to work really well. I don't get any bleeding because I'm using a water-based primer, not an oil. So what I do is I'll take my tape and I know that the union goes in here. I'll put it on the outside of the union and I'll just push it down. And I'll do that for all 7 pieces. Fine too, as long as you push it down there, you won't get no bleeding. You don't get no bleed through, which is good. I mean, if you do, you do. I mean, makes it unique and different. Now, the only one that you're going to do different is the last one. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So because we're painting this side and this side, you need to make sure that the tape not only goes to the line here, but goes across over here. Okay? And we'll start with that piece first. Move that out of the way. Now I just use just regular old mid-wax solid color stain. Goes on really easy, you only need 1 coat. Get it from the local big box store. So this is navy blue. That's the color that I picked for my union. Now there's so many ways to do this. You can use a towel, you can use anything you want, really. I just find it easier. I keep a roll of paper towels nearby. And what I do, start painting it on. Like I said, the good thing about the frog tape is that it doesn't bleed. There are so many different ways to apply it. I just find this to be the easiest way for me. So I will put it on. Get the whole piece covered the way I want it. And then I'll grab a paper towel. And wipe off the excess. And then you can see that the grain still shows through. Put my towel off to the side. Now when you're doing your flag, make sure you paint the edges so it all comes together in the end. And once you got that done, just flip it over to the top part and you do the same thing. Now, one of the things I do too is this is the inside where the other piece of board is going to match up. Because we're going to be carving the union, I take a little bit and just do the upper edge. And it just kind of helps blend them together when you put them back together. So after you have that all done, grab your paper towel again. Rub off the excess. Now I leave the tape on just so it dries. Move that off to the side. And grab the next one. Now on this one, you're going to do two sides. You're going to do that one, and you're going to flip it over and do the other one. I don't go all the way down. There's no reason to go all the way down. I mean, I just go wherever the brush will reach. You grab your paper towel, wipe off all the excess, and just put it off to the side. So what we're going to do is I'm going to keep going until these are all finished, and then we'll be back. Alright, so now that we have all the blue done and it's dried, we're going to start on the red. Pretty much we're going to do the same thing that we did for the red. But since we don't have to do every one, I'm going to take this one out because it's a white shred. And I don't paint them, I just leave them that color. So just start with this. Now remember, this one gets the side and the top. So, and I use the same stuff for this, except for this is barn red. The only different I do with this is I'll use a bigger brush for these. The good thing about the bigger brushes too is that it doesn't go on as thick, so they come off. When you wipe it off, it'll be a lot lighter looking, and they really make the burn mark that we put in them really stand out. Do the same thing. Grab some paper towel. Just wipe it off. And then, as you can see, when you wipe it off, it still shows the burn mark. Now, remember, the big thing is to make sure you get the end of the red stripe, so that way when you put the flag together, the sides will have red on them too. And do the top. Make sure you get down in all the little grooves. And then with the red, you're going to get red on your fingers. You can wear gloves, but like I said, this is water based, so it comes off really easy when you wash your hands. So I'm not worrying about wearing gloves with this stuff. If I was using an oil, probably I would wear gloves. Most likely I would wear gloves. And grab your towel again. Just wipe her off. And what I do is, after it's all done, I wipe it off, I put it off to the side, start assembling them. So, I have a red one over there, and a white one. This is my next red one, this is the white one, so I'll move it off to the side. Do the same thing. Now, I don't go down too far on the sides when I'm doing the red. You can if you want to, you don't have to. I just do it on the blue because the blue is going to be next to each other and I don't want anything showing through. Grab your paper towel. Wipe it off real good. Get all the excess off. Like I said, don't forget. Make sure you do. Now on the red, you want to do both ends on the red. You're going to do that side and that side. So this is a red. We always start with red, either at the top or the bottom, and alternate them. That way you get the right amount of reds. You can stretch this stuff pretty far. I mean, you're wiping some of it off anyway, so yeah. You don't have to use extra. Might as well just stretch it and See how far you can take it. Now you're just doing this and you're going to make sure you get all the extra clumps off. Sometimes it leaves too much on there. Put that off to the side. This is the white one. Now, this is what I do with these. I leave the tape on there to dry, and then I'll take it off. And you can see it gave me a nice line. So I'm going to just take that same piece of tape and put it on the very edge of the blue and push it down. And just put on my red that way. Grab my towel, wipe off the excess. And then what I'll do, I'll take the tape off, and then you get a perfect straight line between the union and the stress. Obviously this is a white one, so we can just take that off. Just keep doing that. I have seen people use the razor blades. I'm not particularly fond of it. So I use the tape. I've had really good success with the product tape. I just get it at Walmart. You can get it at any of the big box stores, I'm sure. I just picked it up at my local Walmart. So just wipe off all the extra. Here you get the corners. And put the tape off. This is a white one. You can just pull the tape off this one. Sometimes I leave a little overhang. Just a little bit. Not much. That way that way you don't have a white line in there. 'Cause sometimes you'll think you're close enough, but you're not. And when you pull the tape off, you're like, oh man, what do? I just take a real small paintbrush that you would use for painting a painting or something, and just put a little bit on there and try and get as close as I can without getting into the blue. And obviously when my paper towel gets full, I just grab another one. You can use shop cloths, you can use towels, you can use old t-shirts, you can use whatever you want to wipe it off, put it on. Totally up to you. I just find paper towel works easiest for me. Alright, this is the last white stripe. Just take the tape off of that. Now this one, remember, we have to do the top and the side on this one. So you're going to want to make sure that the tape is all the way around. Make sure you get it inside the little grooves. You don't want to leave any spots untouched. And I just take it and go back over like that, just to make sure there's no big globs left on there. Grab a new paper towel. Wipe it off. And take the tape off. And then what I'll do, put the lid. And grab all my pieces. Bring all back over to my board, over here on my table. So, now that I'm here, my next step, I grab my screws, a little silicone brush for wood glue, Alright, so I got my screws, I got my silicone brush. I use the Type Bond 3 wood glue because it's waterproof. It's for interior and exterior, but we will spray them with a protector so people can hang them outside. So I just use a wood glue that'll help protect it. So what I do is I take my two pieces, and I take the wood glue, now you don't have to use the wood glue if you don't want to. I just use it as an extra step to make sure that everything stays together. And then I just use my little brush here. And you take your piece, line it up. Now this is the part where you can really tighten down on them. You want to make sure that you get a good bond, but what you're doing too is when you're screwing it in there, you want to make sure that you feel that these are lined up. I mean, obviously they're going to go where the original hole was. just keep repeating that process until you're fully assembled. One of the things I like to do is turn it around and let it face me, because sometimes you get squeeze out and you want to make sure that you wipe it off. Alright, and we'll just keep going until we're fully assembled. And then, just like that, you have a fully assembled American flag. And just make sure that, you know, there's no wood glue leaking out on the front. If there is, just, you can use your finger and just wipe it off. What I like to do now. Alright. So, the next step in the process is grab your stencil, lay your stencil on, and you start, find a spot, just tape it down in a couple spots to hold it in place. Make sure that your stars are pointing up. You don't have to go crazy with this part, just, you know, only gonna be held down for a few minutes. Now this is just the way I do it. You can use a Cricut or a circuit, or I think it's a Cricut, the vinyl machine. I have done that in the past, but I find this to be easier. You get it all taped down, but make sure you don't tape down over the star. You need to do that. And the next thing I do is, I got this pencil off of Amazon. Sharpen her up. And you can use a white colored pencil, a white crayon, whatever, you know. I find this to be the easiest, because what you can do is just, you can outline all your stars in white. Now I do this because I hand carve all my stars. I mean, you could paint them on there if you want. You could put them on with vinyl. You can buy stars and glue them on yourself. I mean, nobody says that you have to cut them out. I just prefer to have that carved look. My clients, people that buy my flags, they really like it, so that's what I go with. People nowadays, they want that handmade feel, so they'll pay when they know that you've hand carved them compared to just lick them and stick them on there. Takes a few minutes, a little tedious to trace out 50 stars, but it's worth it in the long run. I find a white crayon or pencil or this to work. I've used gel pens in the past and I have very much success with them. The pencil or the crayon I find works the best. Just get in there as far as you can. And some of them I'll hold down just to kind of get a better get them closer to the wood. I mean, they don't have to be perfect. Keep tracing until they're all done. Now I like to double check before I lift up my stencil that I got all 50 stars. Alright, so double check that you got all 50 stars done before you pull off your stencil. And you're gonna pull your stencil off. After I just got done telling you to check for all 50 stars, this is what happens. See, we all make mistakes. That's how you learn. Alright. So, after you got all 50 stars drawn on there with pencil, the next step, what I do, take my flag and just lay it down. I have a Dremel that has a long wire on it. I use 106 built. Got the 105, the 106, and 107. I find the 106 to work best for me, and I also have this little fan thing that helps blow away any extra stuff. So with that, this is how I carve them. So then, that's what they look like after they're carved. Now, one of the things you have to be careful with when you're using this, sometimes this piece here, you can see I got too close to the wood and I burn it. Now, there is a solution to that. To fix those little marks, grab yourself a blue marker and just color it in. And it blends right in with the union. So, with that being said, I will carve all these out and then I'll be back.